Worth noting that Weiss was actually planning to end the investigation, not requiring any guilty plea on any of the charges up until those two IRS whistleblowers popped up. That's when the sweetheart plea deal got put together.
And a judge that was on the ball.
Yeah, and she put the kibosh on the plea deal. Talking about irony, as we mentioned at the top of the show, just hours after Hunter Biden was found guilty on those 3 felony counts, his daddy was up on stage giving us a sermon on cracking down on the Second Amendment.
Ban assault weapons. Think about it. How many times have you heard this phrase? The blood of liberty. Wash it, though. Give me a break. No, I mean it, seriously. And by the way, if they want to think to take on government if we get out of line, which they're talking again about, well, guess what? They need F-15s. They don't need a rifle.
Let's welcome back Stacey Washington, Ben Ferguson, and Dana Loesch. Dana, I want to come to you on this. Obviously, Hunter Biden's conviction, it was a clear violation of the law, and the jury followed the law and the evidence and came back with 3 guilty verdicts. But I wonder, is the joke here on conservatives and those who love the Second Amendment that there is somewhat of a celebration in restrictions now surrounding the Second Amendment? For those of us who care about it, we're concerned about the restrictions and the laws around the Second Amendment, because the Constitution has none of those.
Yeah, Sean, I think you bring up a really, really good point here, and this is where I don't want conservatives to get baited into this. First off, this decision, it wasn't about whether or not someone agrees with the law that Democrats wanted, Democrats demanded, Democrats passed, Democrats implemented, and Democrats have even passed more stricter regulations to go along with it since the Brady bill, since all of that. In the meantime, this is about hypocrisy of the gun control party. It's about the hypocrisy of the gun control first family that has grifted off of this issue, has made money fundraising off of this issue, has advocated for it. You have a man named Dexter Taylor who is sitting in prison in New York right now, an innocent man who does not have the record that Hunter Biden does, who is a family man, who is a smart, intelligent, non-drug using man with no criminal offenses. He's sitting in prison right now, but his daddy is not named Joe Biden. And he's a black man. His last name isn't Biden. He's not getting that special treatment from David Weiss and the Biden family and the justice system. I'm not celebrating this verdict because, and I'll tell you why, but as to this particular case, you cannot endorse gun control, but also realize that this is hypocrisy from the Biden family. And they just went, Sean, they went at him on this case. And the reason that he got convicted on these 3 charges is because this is the least thing they could go after him on. The tax case is way bigger. But I actually don't expect him to get convicted because it actually implicates Joe Biden, Jim Biden, and the rest of the Biden family. And then one last thing on this. This actually could be, you mentioned irony, really very interesting because Hunter Biden, this could be a case that could be kind of like Cantor v. Barr or the Rahimi case that SCOTUS is going to be making a decision on and announcing that very shortly. It comes down to whether or not someone can use drugs or drink and whether that's considered a forfeiture of your natural rights. The Cantor v. Barr was very informative on this. It's going to be very interesting to see if this becomes Biden v. U.S.
I'm hardcore Second Amendment, and I don't think that you should have to forego your Second Amendment rights. And I know that I think we all are in agreement with that. If you are, again, weed's legal. And if you're if you use drugs, or weed's legal in some places, or if you drink. However, that's not what the Democrats stand for, as Dana was pointing out. Ben, what chaps my backside every time I listen to a lefty named Biden or anyone talk about the Second Amendment. Joe Biden, they don't even know what the Second Amendment represents. Correct. Joe Biden repeated again another lie that you can't own a cannon. You couldn't own a cannon. He got 4 Pinocchios for the Washington Post on that, but he keeps repeating it because he's still, I guess his brain is still somewhere about 10 years ago. And he doesn't remember being fact-checked.
Somebody needs to fact-check that speech and see if he stole those words from Trudeau, because it sounded an awful lot like a Trudeau speech to me. But I go back to this conviction and I say this. This is a red herring of all red herrings. This was set up so that you could protect the President of the United States of America at all costs. There were 2 crimes they could go after Hunter, and it wouldn't connect him to the Biden crime family. I go back to the House Oversight Committee, and they put out a tweet today, and they're spot on. 7.3 million from China went into the Biden crime family. 4 million from Ukraine, 3.5 million from Russia, 1 million from Romania, 1 million from Panama, 142,000 from Kazakhstan, 1 million from other foreign payments that came in. You have a president that lied about his involvement in the Biden crime family. He had direct contact with the chairman of CEFC, Yi, Chinese fund executive Li, Burisma Corporation secretary, the Russian oligarch. You remember Yekaterina? She's somebody that gave millions to the Biden family. No one's been charged with any of those crimes, including Hunter Biden. So I said today to my audience, do not celebrate today. This is the best case scenario for the Bidens. This is not justice. And let's also be clear. I don't think that Hunter Biden's going to spend a day in jail for this. The president said, I'm not going to pardon him. He didn't say he wouldn't commute his sentence. And look, when he wins or loses in November, I think he's going to lose. But if he does win, he's going to pardon his son or commute him at the bare minimum. And this has all been a ruse from the very beginning. This is not justice.
You know, Stacey, going back to the speech, Joe Biden also made a comment about, who needs a gun with 20 or 100 rounds? If you want to beat the U.S. government, you need F-15s. It makes me think about the Taliban. And they didn't have F-15s, and Joe Biden went running with his tail between his legs, leaving, $80 billion of American equipment in Afghanistan. It's like, well, Joe, again, I'm not advocating this at all, but again, more lies and rhetoric for an audience, and it's total bogus.
Yeah, and I don't recall seeing anything in the Constitution about the founders saying what we could and couldn't own. We can have cannons, we can have all kinds of different firearms of different strengths, and I believe if George Washington was still around, he'd say, yeah, the F-16, that's something you can have too. If you can build a garage big enough to put it in, you can have an F-16. A lot of Americans have flight and pilot licenses. This isn't about that, though. He goes to that analogy because it gets him claps from his ignorant voters and people who like to sit around in these audiences and act like this man is sane. But the fact is, Americans need to have 700 million guns, which is the estimate of firearms owned by Americans lawfully, not the illegal guns that are owned. The lawful guns are around 700 million. And we need those just in case anybody else decides to put boots on the ground here in this country. Also, because we have 15 million illegal invaders that Biden brought in here, most of them military-age fighting men. So thank you. I'll keep my 30-round mag on my AR and all of my other long guns and my extra capacity magazines. I'll keep those, and I'll be shot ready. Shot marksman on active duty. I can still shoot marksman. I can knock a can off of that tree that's about 300 yards away out of my window in my yard right now. I don't play, because I might need to defend myself. These Democrats are dangerous, and they're bringing military-age fighting men in here, and I'll be darned if I'm not ready to stand toe-to-toe. And with my daughters next to me, my son, my husband, we'll all raise long guns if we need to, and we'll do what needs to be done. That's my right as an American. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden.
No doubt, well said.
Yes. Amen. Can I ask this?
Real quick.
Is he saying that we get to have constitutionally protected jets now? Because that's how I interpreted that. We all get jets. We can have that. It's protected by the Constitution.
That's right.
Yeah,
Dana, let's sign up for those flying lessons.
I love it. All right, you guys, great conversation. Stacey, Ben, Dana, we appreciate you guys joining The Bottom Line.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.